What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Akeem Shavers here, author of the Scholarship Offer System, and one of the only people that can show you how to get on the recruiting radar fast within 4 weeks or less. And I'm one of the only people that can show you how to get recruited without spending thousands of dollars. So with that being said, in today's video, we're just going to cover a few questions that you want to ask a coach, either when you're on the phone, on a visit, through email, through text, however you're communicating with them. Here's just a few questions that you might want to ask whenever you get that chance. And don't be afraid to ask these questions. Coaches love when you ask questions and it make it look like you're more prepared. So with that being said, let's get into it. Let me see here. Boom. Make myself smaller. I'm sorry. All right. So questions to ask a coach, well, college coaches. We'll just go to the next slide here. And let's see here. So questions about academics. I'm not going to read all these questions because I'm pretty sure y'all know how to read. So I'm just going to leave it at that. So I just want to go over, like, when you're asking questions about academics, it makes it look like you are more interested in the academic part and you're serious about your education. So asking these questions about academics is a huge bonus because everybody's not asking these questions and coaches love that. So one of the big ones is the last one here is, will my major affect the athletic schedule? In a lot of cases, yes, it will. And sometimes it won't. Some majors are flexible, especially with your athletic schedule. So just always keep that in the back of your mind when it's time to choose your major. And the second question I like is, does your university offer academic scholarships? Because not all institutions offer full ride athletic scholarships. So especially D3, they don't offer athletic scholarships. It's either they do grants, like Pell Grants, or academic scholarships and other forms of funding. So that being said, let's go to the next page here. All right, so this is another section of questions about the academics process. So the first one is, how is the academic process handled by your institution? You want to know if you have to do all your planning yourself, or is your course load, or do they have academic advisors, stuff like that. Those are questions you want to know. And the second one, which is huge, is which testing do you prefer, SAT or ACT? Because that's a huge question. Some institutions frown upon the ACT, some love it, some don't like the SAT, some only accept it. So just keep that in mind when you're asking these questions about academics. And I'm going to have a PDF of all these questions linked below, so you'll have them whenever you need them. So I'm not going to read all of them. Excuse me, I'm not going to read all of them, but this is just here for your reference and just give you an idea. And hopefully this leads to more questions that you're able to ask in the future. So let's see here. All right, so questions about the process. So questions about the process is basically all about the recruiting process. So you want to dig deep into this because you need to know this stuff and you want to hear straight out the horse's mouth. And don't let them feed you some BS or anything like that. You need real answers because this is your life that you're planning out your future. So first question is, what would it take for me to earn a scholarship from your program? That's a big one, because you need to know what you need to do, especially if you're starting this process early. This is the biggest question. It gives you a marker, more of like a milestone chart, or in a sense to where you get, all right, coach said I need to do this, boom, done it, check it off. Coach said I need to do that, done it, check it off. And then the next question that I like really a whole lot is a third question, which is, are you currently recruiting my position on your team? You don't want to waste your time. You don't have a lot of time. And especially if a coach isn't serious about you, or they already have all the positions filled for your position, you want to start looking for other options. All right. And this is another huge question that you want to know. Do you give out 1-year scholarships or 4-year scholarships? So it depends on your sport, really, and what division you're at. Normally, Division I scholarships are usually 1-year renewable contracts. So and that's just football and basketball. You have to go through exit meetings and sign, re-sign your scholarship papers after every spring, I believe. Yeah, after every year, you have to renew that contract. So that kind of gives you an incentive to work your hardest, because as soon as they sign you, they're looking to replace you. So I just want to throw that little nugget out there for you so you know what to expect. And moving on to the next questions about the process. Let's see here. So you also want to know, where do you fit in on the list of recruits? Now, if you're at the bottom, you don't want to continue wasting your time with this team, because even though a lot can happen and where you can move up to the top, but if you find a coach who's being honest with you, you definitely want to keep your options open, because that is the biggest waste of time. If you're at the bottom of their recruiting list, you're not going to be treated as a priority. So it'll be of your best interest to look elsewhere. But so the next one is, what is your recruiting timeline? Each coach has a recruiting timeline. Don't let them lie to you. Everybody has deadlines that they have to meet. So just ask them so you have an idea of what to expect, when to expect, you know, and so you have an idea of what's going on, because you don't want to be going through this process blind. Obviously, you know that's why you're here, but it's just one of those questions that I prefer you ask. It's a hard question, but it's a helpful question at the same time. So definitely want to ask that question. Now moving on here, questions about the program. What we want to do here is, now you want to dig into the program. What's it like? What's the team's values and stuff like that? So first question here is, what does a regular day look like during the season for your athletes? You definitely want to know that so you can get a feel of what's going on. You can kind of have an idea of what your daily schedule will be. And that's one of the good questions. It's not as hard. Most coaches love when you ask that. It's easy to explain. And the second one here is, what are the team's values? That's a big one, because each team, even each side of the ball, or the offense, defense, each position could have a different set of values. So you definitely want to know which type of values you're being that team is have adopted, and what you should expect to come into. So you can see the other questions here. We're going to move on to the next set of questions about the program. Computer stop being slow. But all right, so another question is, do players live together? A lot of schools uh sections off whole dorms, and only a certain team lives in that dorm, especially like football, basketball, and softball and soccer and stuff like that. Some of these teams have their own dorms, and some programs have off campus living, where they would kind of encourage you to have roommates that are your teammates. It makes it easier on everybody. But another question is, how do players balance classes, practice, travel, social life, etc.? That is a big one, because you definitely want to know that, because at the end of the day, you are a student first, then you're athlete. So you have to balance all these other things that comes along with being a student athlete. So it's not just playing your sport 100% of the time. You have other you have other dedication, other things that your time is dedicated to in order to remain a student athlete. So definitely ask that question. It's definitely a hard one, but at the same time, it'll be worth it, because you'll know what to expect, and it gives you a head start, so you're not out there winging it. All right. So now we want to get into questions about the coach. Now, these may seem a little personal, but it's okay to ask. Trust me. Coaches do want to know that you have an interest in them, because you will be spending the next 2 to 4 years, maybe 5 years with them. And you do definitely want to build a relationship. And these are a few questions that are great to ask just in general conversation. So the first one is, when does your coaching contract end? And do you see yourself here for another 4 years? So that's the tough one, like the hardest one you have to ask, but it's the most important one, because at the end of the day, you are recruiting these coaches too, because you have to spend like the question says, the next 4 years with these people, and you don't want to commit to somewhere and then the next year they're gone. That's the fastest way to lose any traction or any progress that you made, especially when they're bringing a new coaching staff who kind of already have an idea who they already want to recruit. So definitely ask that question. Let it be one of the main ones you ask when you feel the time is right. But the next question is, what is your coaching style/philosophy? Because each coach is going to be different. It's like, you know how many hairs you have? That's how many different coaching styles that are out there. So with that being said, you definitely want to know their philosophy. Are they more of a teacher? Are they a screamer? Are they a yeller? Are they kind of more methodical? Do they kind of let you make mistakes and then correct you afterwards? You definitely want to know this type of stuff because these are the type of people you're going to be spending that time with. So definitely ask that question. It's a good one. Throw it in there somewhere. You don't have to ask all these questions through a list like one go down the list. You don't have to do that. Trying to make them sound natural. Just kind of have them on your side when you're talking to a coach or when you're texting, just in case, you know. And the next question is, how do you plan to use me on your team? That is a good one because sometimes coaches just recruit players so that a rival or someone else doesn't get them. You definitely want to know what they have planned for you, how they see themselves using you, and you definitely want to know like what is your role going to be, because you don't want to get somewhere and you've been looking forward to playing and they don't let you play or they don't utilize you like they say they would. And that's one of the hardest things to like overcome because it messes with your confidence. Like, man, they told me this, they told me that, but I'm not seeing it. So you definitely want to get that out the way as soon as possible as well. So let's move on to the next section here. All right, so questions not to ask. This is kind of my favorite part. So I'll just read all these because they're fun. But questions not to ask is like, when are you going to send my offer? The offer comes when the offer comes. You don't worry about that. You're going to get it if they're interested in you and they already brought you on an official visit. The offer's going to come. Don't worry about all that. So the next one is, why do you need to talk to my current coach? If you ask that question, they're going to think you have something to hide. And coaches communicate with each other, and they're definitely going to talk to another coach, like someone who's had experience coaching you, before they even at times talk to you. So they're going to already have that conversation out the way. So, but that's not saying that they won't circle back and ask them something else. So always keep that in mind. Don't ask that question. And the third one is, do you do package deals? So I understand that we all have friends and family members that we're probably teammates with, and we want them to succeed just as much as we want to succeed. But at the same time, coaches have very, very limited number of scholarships to hand out. And these numbers are especially going down, especially with COVID. So sometimes, like now, half of the dang scholarships are cut in half. Well, yeah, basically cut in half because a lot of kids from other years or years ahead of you, they didn't get to utilize their scholarships, and people didn't graduate. People decided to stay. People opted out. So it's a whole mess. But they normally don't do package deals. All right. So the next question is, how much scholarship money will you give me? That's not a good question to ask because it makes it look like you're greedy and you're more focused on money than actually performing. So you definitely want to stay away from that question. It's not really a good one to ask, but people ask it. So this is just your warning. Parents, don't let your kids ask this question. Athletes, don't ask this question. Yeah, it's a time and place for this question, and they'll definitely get to it when it's time. So don't try to rush it. Just enjoy the process. So we got another couple of questions that you shouldn't ask, and we'll be done with this video. So another question you don't want to ask is, what's the men to women ratio on campus, or vice versa? That definitely makes you look like you're not focused. Makes it look like you're going to be distracted, and they already know what you're coming to college for. Even though it's going to be a new playground, it's something that brand new. Still, ask somebody else. Don't ask the coach. I'm just going to put it that way. All right. So the second one is, how's the nightlife scene in the area? Not something you want to ask a coach. Ask one of the other players, but still be careful who you ask, because at the same time, that can get back to the coach, and you definitely don't want that to kind of be. You don't want that to precede your reputation, if that makes sense. You don't want to come off as the partier before you even get there. Get in good first, and then you can worry about all this other stuff. So the last one is, what is your drug testing policy? Never, never, never ask this question to a coach. Even though I know a lot of people got a lot of extracurricular activities and stuff going on, you don't want to ask this from a coach. They'll definitely cover it in like I think your orientation and stuff like that. But don't ask this to a coach when you're on campus or like on campus visit. Are you emailing him or texting him, or y'all have this back and forth communication? This is definitely a question you want to stay away from. But that should go without saying. And that is it for this video. Thank you for rocking with me this long. This is just kind of like accumulation of questions that I've came up with, or questions I've already asked, and questions that I've talked to other coaches about. Definitely don't want to ask these questions. Definitely want to ask the other ones about the process, about academics, about the coach himself, about the program. Definitely want to ask those questions. And that is it for this video. Thank you for sticking with me this long. Again, see you in the next one. Have a good one.